All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a great best of three series. We're here in the finals of qualifier number 5. It's between Tempo Storm and Cognitive, two teams who've been around for a long time with two relatively new rosters. And both of these teams are trying to make a statement today with a victory over each other, saying, you know what, we might have a new roster, but we're going to be the superior team qualifying, trying to qualify for that $10,000 prize pool. The battleground in game number 1 is going to be Garden of Terror. The Terror of Duskwood already on the field here with Stitches. Jay, what are you thinking so far with this Stitches early pickup from Cognitive?
You know, a lot of people have been a big fan of the recent Stitches buffs, and with all of the, I guess, different structures or obstacles in this, you have a lot of hook potential to get these picks. Obviously, Tempo Storm is very high on the fact that Rhaegar is very strong right now, and they're going to go ahead and ban him out. And with this map, or excuse me, with this tournament, being one of the first and only ones to have Li Ming in it, she's banned out, which means that the rest of the draft looks completely different.
Yeah, like we've seen Thrall completely ignored. Kael'thas, I think, not ignored, but put to the back burner, which is a great bun for Kael'thas. A little pat on my back right there. As well as Zagara being ignored, and that's just sort of what mixes up. Li Ming, obviously, we haven't seen her in the Spring Championship because there's just been a flat ban on her for 2 weeks, but she is going to be in play for the regional. So what that is that's giving teams, Enter the Storm is giving teams an opportunity in a high-level environment, a tournament environment, to kind of see what the teams are up to with the Li Ming, whether they're banning them out or picking or whatnot, anything like that, so on and so forth. Though the draft thus far, we see Falstad, we see Stitches, we see Tyrande. Obviously, Tyrande and Stitches pair up very well together. A hook into a Lunar Flare, very, very strong. I won't be surprised with that pickup of Cognitive. The reason I like that here is because, obviously, the global mobility on Falstad, Garden of Terror is a huge battleground, but more importantly, this sets them up to where they could pick Malfurion. Malfurion pairs very well with Stitches, and without Falstad being an option for Tempo Storm, they can't pick up that Mighty Gust, which is pretty much a hard counter to Malfurion.
One of the things I like, this early Tassadar pick, which sometimes pairs very well with Tyrande. They both kind of play a mixed role. But at the same time, I know Tempo Storm had a game going on. Is there some type of respect going out towards Glaurung and that recent Zeratul play that we just saw? We saw Zeratul make some fantastic plays, and we saw, you know, a bit of a change of pace there. And now Tempo Storm, we are into the second ban phase, and I really like this. And Tyrande, Falstad, Stitches, as you said, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Malfurion. We saw it a lot just the other day in the qualifier, and I feel like that's where we're headed right now. And there's a Kael'thas ban showing respect again, saying, hey, Kael'thas, strong heroes still. We want to keep it out of the hands of Faye.
They're eyeballing it. They haven't said it in quite yet here. Yeah,
I know.
I was going to say it probably is going to be that, unless they are some teams in this new draft where you can kind of see which ones they have highlighted before they pick them, like really messing with casters and spectators. Just all of a sudden they pick Gazlo, and it's like, what? Lunara now being eyed for Cognitive here. So yeah, I know Iacona, he's played a lot of Malfurion in the past. Malfurion isn't a healer support we see much of, despite the fact, not much of, but there's other healer supports that outshadow him. Obviously, Uther, Rhaegar, Kharazim are the 3 most common ones, and Malfurion, Bob Ross fan clubs likes running Malfurion a little bit more. We've seen it kind of, Iacona, as I mentioned, played it a little bit more in other teams, but I really think that he would fit in so very well here because Stitches thrives on this battleground. There's so many nooks and crannies that he can go in, especially around the Garden Terrors as well. There's kind of that horseshoe right on the other side, separating themselves from the Garden Terror. You can just throw out a blinder hook, and more often than not, you're going to be able to get someone separated from the rest of their team. Tempo Storm, though, they're picking up Sonya and Lieutenant Morales, so that's a very volatile, strong composition. Sonya pairs well, or rather Tassadar pairs well with Sonya. I think the last pick here for Tempo Storm will probably be a zone control-oriented warrior.
Yeah, Sonya is going to be able to get the benefits from Morales with those direct heals, and then the shields coming out from Tassadar. I really like that. You know, looking at Cognitive, they have quite a few options right now. Sonya, of course, not as strong, but still very viable here. And then the combination of Tassadar and Morales. Both teams, I'm really curious if Cognitive is going to try and secure, and they're not afraid to go with this Zeratul pick. It looks like they might be locking in, but they have to give respect towards Tassadar. And the one thing that you talked about, if they do pick up Malfurion, Stitches is one of those warriors that does have that amplified healing at level 4 as well. So, you know, a lot of potential here with Cognitive for these last 2 picks, and I'm real curious to see, are they going to lock in the Zeratul? That's going to be the main thing right now.
Yeah, picking Zeratul into Tassadar, I mean, obviously we saw Glaurung Zeratul last game. It's a world-class performance from him. And they don't even mind. They're like, you know what? There's Tassadar. Don't even care. Going to pick it up anyways, and they are going to set it in here. So right now, there's just so much synergy and strength being built upon this Stitches. When you do something like that, that means your Stitches player has to land those hooks when you put this much emphasis into it. Obviously, Void Prison and Stitches, Zeratul and Stitches is a combination dating back a long time ago when Stitches was seen a little bit more often. You hook someone out, you Void Prison whoever the healer support is, obviously Lieutenant Morales for Tempo Storm, and you just literally pick them apart with surgical precision. I don't know if you want to call Stitches a surgeon, but it's a very strong, effective draft here. And no, there is going to be no Malfurion. It is just going to be that solo support to Ronda coming out here from Zagar.
I don't know if you saw that, but their time pool ticked in with only 2 seconds left, and they got the switch from a Vala to a Zagara. I don't know if they were messing with us, but they got that in at the last moment. So I do like the Zagara pickup here. Obviously, you know, her vision, her strength, her damage is great, but we are going to see a solo Tyrande versus a double support composition from Tempo Storm. So a little bit change in strategy, or a little bit difference in strategy from both teams here.
So we're going to get into this game as soon as we can here, guys. Again, this is the finals, so this is going to be the best of 3 series between these two teams. So we're going to see them mix it up. Maybe, you know, Garden of Terror is sometimes a battleground when we see Lost Vikings and Abathur and things like that. Not so much Abathur, but these teams just putting their best foot forward. No crazy strategies coming out here. These are pretty orthodox strategies for both of these teams. Tempo Storm, this is a very familiar draft for them. We have seen Muradin a couple times put more into a bruiser position as instead to like a damage soaking frontline zone control warrior. His zone control isn't as effective as it used to be. No more mini stun on that avatar, but nonetheless, a Sonya with Lieutenant Morales and giving her that uptime with Tassadar shields, especially if that Tassadar builds into the shields like Plasma Shield level 4, Call's Embrace, things like that. That Sonya is going to be doing just wrecking the backline of Cognitive.
Huge strategies when you look at Sonya, able to dive in, be able to survive a little bit more with that versus somebody like Zeratul going up against the Tassadar. The dive on the back lines is going to be very different from each team's.
All right, guys, we're getting this lobby underway here. This is going to be exciting, and oh man, that Lieutenant Morales skin on Zix. You guys see that here. See that here in just a moment. In the meantime, while we're waiting for this game to take shape here, go ahead, head over to Twitter. Give a big shout-out to Roccat, big shout-out to GoSuit Gamers. They have a specific Heroes of the Storm Twitter handle as well. And give them a thanks for the support, guys. As well, myself, Shane Gucher, at Shane Gucher, my co-caster, Jay Howell. Plug yourself a little bit here, man.
Guys, you may or may not know me in the Diablo scene, but I'm loving it here on the Enter the Storm right now. You can find me on Twitter at JHowGaming. You can also find me on YouTube at the exact same. But definitely shout out to the sponsors. This is a tournament that I've been following for a while. I definitely enjoy the teams that are here. We're seeing the best of the best right now competing in this. Obviously, the stakes are a bit higher, and I couldn't be happier and more delighted to cast such wonderful games. Cognitive obviously looking really good going up against Tempo Storm. Best of 3, Shane. I'm really looking forward to this between Tempo and Cognitive.
Tempo Storm, they put on a decent performance. I would say actually the expectations from them were kind of a little bit nebulous. They really weren't sure what to expect from that Heroes Rising with that new roster. It was their first LAN. They did a great job. Obviously, they couldn't get first place, but still, it was a strong performance for a new roster. Afterwards, they had a couple of weak moments where they were getting knocked out, specifically in the Storm qualifiers early on, the first couple of rounds. But they have really come back. They have bounced back very, very effectively. Obviously, they're here in the finals of qualifier number 5. They've been doing decently, and they've qualified for the Los Angeles regionals in the end of February here for that $100,000 prize pool for the spring championship. So they are really on the rise here. But the same thing can be said about Cognitive with their new roster. Ever since they've kind of merged between the old Cognitive and the old Murloc Geniuses and thrown Glaron back into the mix, both of these teams are on the up and up. And it's always exciting to see the sort of the dichotomy between the two teams who are just so aggressively trying to make their stake in the prize pool here.
Garden of Terror coming up, not one that you see a lot of in the competitive scene. We talked about it before. We saw a lot of Cursed Hollow. We see a lot of Sky Temple. We see a lot of those maps, but I don't remember the last time I've seen a really competitive Garden of Terror game. But Shane, this map is a little bit different than most, and one of the big changes that they made, and I think it's one of those things that a lot of the high-end players have, is that Garden Terror is now able to lock down that core when it's available.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the game here in just a moment. There we go. That's what we were doing. Hashtag production. On the left side of your map is going to be Tempo Storm. And these guys are this best of one. They want to get themselves... what's going on here? Anyways, on the left side of your map is going to be Tempo Storm. Introduce him real quick, Jay Howe.
That is going to be Srather on Mirrodin, Goku on Sonya, Zix on Morales, KO on Tassadar, and Soldier's going to be manning that Jaina.
Your eyes doth not deceive you. That is not going to be Cloud9 on the right side of the map. That is going to be Tempo Storm. I'm sorry, Cognitive, rather, on the right side of the map. Glaerong, of course, on the Zeratul. And the gates are down. This game is underway. Neither of these teams are going to meet up with each other. Looks like they're going to be pushing the bottom lane here.
Glaerong keeping vision on everything, but we're seeing one of these old strategies that was real popular just recently before these tower changes, but on a smaller map, they are making a bit of an aggressive approach here, pushing down the bottom tower, not able to secure it, and wisely rotating out. They have the vision from the Sentinel that's going to go out from Tyrande, and then they had Glaerong basically scouting the area as well. I like that early rotation, and now they've got Falstad flying right to the top, so well executed very early on by Cognitive.
Yep. That's well done by them. They weren't able to sweep down there and capitalize and punish it, anything like that. Level 1 talents, we see it is going to be that Frostbolt build coming out here from Soldier, and I think that's going to be the new age build, man. I think the old build we've seen for a long time with those buffs that Jaina has received, it's going to be all about the increased single target damage burst capabilities, which he already was very, very strong, but more specifically, building into those Frostbots talents with Pierce at level 4, Icelands at level 7, it gives you so much harassment, something that Jaina lacked a little bit. She was really reliant on a somewhat longer cooldown of Blizzard. Not anymore. She can have much more poke, much more harassment, which in these little kind of skirmishes that go on in this map sometimes with the smaller seed camps and whatnot, she really is going to thrive much more in those situations.
I really like Tempo Storm's rotation right now. Contesting Zagara in that bottom lane, they had the perfect composition down there to basically prevent any type of massive creep spread. As you can see, it's pretty much all cleared out with the exception of one. So nicely done there by Tempo Storm. I like their early rotation. Caterpillar here on the bottom just missed a hook. We do see a little bit of a split right now. The rotation now is coming down, possibly from Tempo Storm to help contend against this, but it looks like they might be splitting back to the top.
And we see Cognitive are going to contend over the bottom Garden Terror. One of the great strengths that sometimes goes unrecognized for Tyrande is her ability to Hunter's Mark those really big objectives, obviously specifically the Garden, the Shambler here in the bottom part of the map. So they can take it down much more quickly than that at Tempo Storm, which won't be this time around. They might want to contend over it, but later on in the match, that might open up an opportunity because they can take it down so swiftly, they can sweep to the other side and try to contend over the other Garden Terror. Not going to be the case, though. It looks like this is going to be a clean 90 siege to 90 seeds for both of these teams, as close as you can get it. Bottom lane, though, under a lot of pressure from Cognitive.
That early push that they made, I'm not sure if this was the strategy for them to push that bottom lane and then basically grab the bottom Terror and make a focus so that they could easily rotate down. A great decision from Cognitive if that was their strategy, because right now they're absolutely assaulting this bottom fort and they have a full level advantage right now, Shane. A
little bit of a base trade situation here. Saray's going in there by himself. I'm sure he's feeling okay because he has his Dwarf Toss available to him, but feeling a little bit confident. They're sweeping in from the wrong side of the map up until 3 into Cognitive. He takes a lot of harassment damage and not going to be able to delay the inevitable. The bottom fort does go down. Meanwhile, top lane, Tempo Storm doing the best they can to take this out. And they are going to be able to get this fort, but Tempo Storm had to commit 4 people to this push as opposed to the 3 of Cognitive. So Cognitive soaking experience a little bit more effectively here. We actually see them making an aggressive invasion onto the Bruiser camp of Tempo Storm.
Tempo Storm has to know that's what's going on. They don't see him on the map, and they're making a trade exactly the same. Glaerong, of course, playing the scout there, and you can see he's going to rotate up. He does get detected by that Oracle, so he can't go up there. You could see he was going to rotate to the top, try and soak even more experience, but that's the value of Tassadar against a Zeratul.
Yeah. I'm not sure if... Okay, finally, Zix went down here and picked up that last seed. It kept bothering me that it was 89 to 90. I'm like, did they know that they didn't get all the seeds? But finally, they were able to pick it up. And yeah, Cognitive are looking so great right now, Jay Howe. Level 7 talent advantage. More importantly, if they can maintain or even possibly build up this experience advantage that they've already got themselves, they'll have that level 10 heroics become with the next night phase. Get themselves... Both of these teams more than likely going to get Garden Terrors, but with putting yourself into an opportunity where you can get 2 Garden Terrors back to back in the mid game or even in the late game is such a huge advantage. It's a decently strong team fighting tool, but more importantly, you can melt down those structures early on and build yourself a huge experience lead, gain control of the map. It's just a huge advantage to have at your disposal.
We do see a rotation coming up from Tempo Storm. They were in pursuit of Calth and Luck, but they rotated over, almost caught Faye. Faye able to get that siege camp just in time. It is already taking damage, but they are starting to push back. Is Cognitive. We see a siege camp in the middle also for Tempo Storm. Dropping back, you can see on the minimap there, Sonya doing the same thing. But now we have 4 members of Cognitive rotating here. Will they try and go for more structure damage here with this siege camp at their back to try and get even closer to 10? They're making very aggressive and very smart rotations right now.
They are. They're going to the siege camp. Glaring spotted out a little bit too late. They aren't able to pick up the camp. Thinking about maybe trying to get aggressive on Zix and Goku here. Thinking twice about it. Going to fall back. Caterpillar trying to get some damage on Stray. And yeah, this would be a great moment for them to push down these towers in the mid lane. That would give them enough experience. They'll be right on the horizon to their level 10 heroics. As we did see that in the bottom lane with the Bruiser camp that they were able to pick up aggressively and take away from Tempo Storm. That forced the hand of Tempo Storm. They had to rotate their Jaina down here. Jaina out of the equation. Allowed Cognitive to have that wiggle room to just pretty much dictate and control the flow of the map. And with already finding themselves in a position where they're heading experience, this is a great time to be a Cognitive fan, as right now, with this next nighttime phase coming up, they're going to be able to just do whatever they want, as long as Glaurung doesn't go down here.
Glaurung, I don't know if you were able to catch that, but oh, the hook comes out on Jaina. The stun follows up. Will she be able to survive?
Oh,
Not
man,
enough heals
goodbye.
as Glaurung blinked right in, secured that kill at the perfect time because we now have our second wave of terrors up. There is going to be Garden Terrors for both teams. They're going to be coming out, but we saw a little bit of a poke there just before from Jaina spotting that. They committed. And then, unfortunately for them, but the nice rotation by Cognitive right now looking very strong as they do hit their heroics first.
So we are going to see some Garden Terror on Garden Terror action here, ladies and gentlemen. But again, it all comes down to who can get the remainder of the seeds and put themselves in a situation where they are going to be able to dictate these next couple of nighttime phases. It's so important in the mid stages of this map. It's such a large battleground that taking away the forts is much more impactful than it otherwise normally would be, especially for Cognitive. They have that global mobility of the Falstad, so it just continues to build and build and build if they're able to keep the lanes pushed out, continue to soak more effectively. And I talked about how the Jaina's old build is going to be going away. Well, you know, not going to be the case. Soldier proved me wrong here. He went with the more traditional build at level 4 and level 7 with the water elemental, but still, it's still an incredibly effective build at rushing down heroes and getting big bursts in either the front or the back line of Cognitive.
Shane, I am absolutely in love with Cognitive shot calling right now. They were able to send 4 members to the top, force the rotation from Tempo to be able to drop back and get the necessary level 10 heroics. Then they rotated down, grabbed even more seeds in that bottom lane, and they're going to be able to have another one. I mean, just great play there by Cognitive. They grabbed the seeds that they needed, left the rest, and they're coming to defend against Tempo Storm's terror now.
They they have to deal with this one in the bottom lane, though, because losing these inner structures at this early part of the game would put you in such an awkward position, having that bottom lane always pushed in. So it's forcing Sony to have to be in that bottom lane. Jaina, Soldier's Jaina up in the top lane as well, trying to just soak as effectively as they can while Cognitive are just kind of clumped up, really not doing that much. So this is actually a good heads-up play from Tempo Storm, trying to narrow that gap of experience as best as they can. But nonetheless, they still find themselves at a substantial experience deficit. Glaurung going on Goku. He's got to be careful as he's continuing to walk that tightrope of being aggressive, but at the same time always being able to get out when he needs to get out.
You can see Tempo Storm trying to get some value out of this terror. It's going down right now. They're going to get disembarked from that. KO on this back end. Glaurung trying to get sight there. The hook coming in, not able to secure it. The Void Prison going down. Goku not able to get to that Void Prison to save himself. I'm not sure if that would have done enough. Calvin Luck with that barrel roll into the Void Prison. Absolutely amazing play by Calvin Luck there,
man.
Shane.
That was textbook play, Stitches of Zeratul play right there, Jer. How I talked about it in the draft. You hook someone out, you void prison the Lieutenant Morales or whatever this healer support may be. You isolate that target who was a Sony in that situation, and you just take the team fight from there on out. Beautiful execution right there from Cognitive. Off of the back of this, they already have themselves another Garden Terror. The rich are going to keep on getting richer here as they pick up the Shambler in the bottom lane, as well as Zeratul picking up the Siege Orca camp of Tempo Storm. Cognitive are in such an extremely strong position right now.
Captain Luck barrel rolls onto the point. We do see the Dwarf Toss out of there by Stray, and they basically, but Stray is grabbed right back. No Dwarf Toss available. Avatar comes out. The heals are there. Going to keep him alive. Devouring Maw goes down that back end, but not enough to follow up as the Force Wall comes out. The disengaged and another camp going to Cognitive.
An uncharacteristic kind of, no other way to put it, useless Maw there from Faye. Maybe they thought that they were going to maybe Faye thought there was going to be a little bit more commitment there from the rest of her teammates to try to initiate. So Maw on cooldown now for about 1 minute and 10 seconds, and unfortunately they're not going to have that for the push with this Garden Tear. And that would be a huge tool for them to not only push these structures down, but if Tempo Storm find themselves caught a 2-3-man Maw, that could just at this stage of the game with this sort of lead, put them in an almost unwinnable position, a Tempo Storm, I mean. But nonetheless, no more Maw, so this is Tempo Storm's got to be feeling good about that. There is going to be a quick pause here. I'm assuming that's some sort of latency issue or something like that. But yeah, in the meantime, man, Cognitive are looking so strong here, J-How. I'm thoroughly impressed.
I don't know if your pause is covering up mine, but I believe right now Cognitive has a 2-level advantage right now, 14-12, if I remember that correctly, before that came up. And they're playing extremely well. The rotations right now are completely on point.
Yeah.
And I'm very impressed right now. Looking at the level 13 talents, we are going to see that Giant Killer coming out, focusing on that damage that's going to be coming out on that front line, whether it's going to be on Sonya or Muradin. And then the Overflowing Light, it looks like we're back in the game, though.
So the push for the mid keep, that is what the eyes of Cognitive are on this keep right now. If they can get themselves a hero takedown, that will be icing on the cake as well. But right now, it's all about the keep. Push down this middle lane, take away that map control available to Tempo Storm, asphyxiate them inside of their base, slowly win this match by taking control of the objective, or not slowly win it, but thus far, I wouldn't be surprised if Cognitive just takes a decisive team fight as well. But Tempo Storm, they're a well-veteran team. They've been around for a very long time. They've been in worse situations than this. They've come back from worse situations like this. So we'll see if they can maybe pick themselves up off the ground and get something going here. They're going to be level 13 in a moment, J-How, but level 16 on the horizon for Cognitive.
Cognitive once again forcing Tempo Storm to rotate. Glaurung looking at possibly that he might go and commit to that top fort, able to pull 5 members of Tempo Storm over while the rest of Cognitive rotated down, cleared 2 minion waves, and as you said, getting ever closer to level 16 as there's 13 finally being hit by Tempo Storm.
And they're going to be able to pick up this Bruiser camp. There might be contention from Tempo Storm, but it's just going to be a matter of them being a little bit too late to the party. So now they're going to have to deal with this Bruiser camp pressure in the bottom lane. Glaurung hanging out. He's got to be careful, though. KO spotted him out. He should be able to blink away if he finds himself in any sort of precarious situation. But right now, Cognitive could just fall back, pick up their Siege Ogre camps, exactly what Faye is doing, pick up the other pair of Siege Ogres, their Bruiser camp, just continue to force the hand of Tempo Storm, continue to dictate the flow and the terms of the match. Glaurung's got to be careful, though. He can blink away to the safety. As I mean, look at the structures right now, man. 11 minutes into this game, Tower's still alive in the bottom lane. That's something you don't see very often. It speaks volume about the current place that Cognitive has themselves in.
Tempo Storm rotating back. Faustad almost caught out of position, but we see he's going to fly to the top, continue to soak that XP. Level 16 was hit by Cognitive. We're going to see Goku and KU rotate down here to clean up this bottom lane push as the camp is making its way. In the meantime, we do see Cognitive with almost perfect timing with the way everything's played out, because they're going to grab both of these top camps and continue to allow them to push, because we are 10 seconds away from our next phase here for the Seeds.
Level 16 is huge for Cognitive because it gives them that extra range, that fishing hook for the Stitches. And we've seen maybe 1 or 2 big hooks, but the later the game goes, oh man, Stray's in a lot of trouble. I don't think they're anticipating this air to rotate. The Lunar Flare is not going to land, but they forced the Avatar. Now, the Avatar isn't long of a cooldown as it used to be, but still, no Avatar for this night phase. This is huge for Cognitive. This isn't a big victory for them, but, you know, they got enough yardage to get that first down, essentially forcing out that Avatar right there.
Ooh, just missing a hook there was Caterpillar. One thing we did see to make sure that Faustad stayed alive there, Calthan Luck, you needed the disengage there. He used Mighty Gust. It didn't hit anybody. We also saw the Shadow Stalk. Lucky for them, they're on fairly short cooldowns. The Summon Water Elemental was out. If there was a time to force a fight and they were able to get some vision, this is going to be a perfect time for Cog. But guess what? They have more Seeds once again ready to get another tear. And there it is, being grabbed by Glaurung, and he's going to push. It's probably going to take this top fort out, get a little bit of experience. Your team is up here, clear out this top lane, but what else can they do with it?
Well, it all comes down to Tempo Storm being able to pick up a Terror for themselves, but they're simply just, the numbers are not in their favor. They're not going to be able to. Stray, aggressive Dwarf Toss forward hook, not going to be on the mark there, but as I was trying to talk about before, the later the game goes, the more of an impact a hook pickoff is, because it's such long cooldowns on, or such long respawn timers, rather. Just one pickoff in the late game allows a team to just control the map, which Cognitive is already doing. So one good hook coming out from Caterpillar, as long as the follow-up is there, could just be a game-winning, single-handedly winning a game on the shoulders of, or rather, I guess you could say the hands or the wrist or the coordination of Caterpillar Stitches. But, man, this a little bit of split pressure from Cognitive, putting most of their team down in the bottom lane and forcing Tempo Storm to react to the Garden Tear up in the top lane.
Cognitive rotated down, and my first thought was, wait a minute, they're not going to compete for this. Yes, they are up a talent level, but it was 4 versus 5. What they essentially did was they forced Tempo Storm to leave all 5 members there and allow Glaurung to continue to push that top, get a little bit of damage in on that, keep that entire front wall is down. They were able to split rotate. Again, the shot calling right now of Cognitive is top notch as they have a 2.5, almost 3 level advantage. Here comes the hook, Shane.
Thankfully, Stray is going to be able to dwarf toss himself out, but oh no, the stun coming into play right there from Cothenlug, once again forcing out the Avatar and the Stone form. So no Avatar for 90 seconds right as Tempo Storm hit level 16. This is generally when we want to see a team try to make an aggressive move to get themselves back into a match in the late game. But with no Avatar, that means that they are not going to be as strong as they want. Stray has to be very careful, not having that big health boost to keep them alive in these team fights.
Down at the bottom, Faye grabbing yet another camp, and we are seeing them in complete control as the rest of the team for Cognitive dropping back on their side. Faye going to get out of there. Very low on mana. The Oracle comes out. We're going to see Faye drop back, but Tempo Storm being forced to rotate as a team. 19-16 right now in favor of Cognitive.
So once those level 20 Storm tier talents come online here, Tempo Storm are just going to be just up against the rope, is putting it lightly here, Jay Howe. They're going to have to not only take a decisive team fight more than once, they're going to have to do it down the second most influential and most impactful talents at level 20. Stitches, he can go Bolt to the Storm or Hardened Shield. Both of them are very, very good. We see some flashy plays with Bolt forwards and hooking people out of position. Speaking of which, Stray does get hooked up here. There's no follow-up there. Just add that to the list of Caterpillar so far, trying to pad his hooks numbers. But, I mean, obviously, Falstad has that epic mount. His mobility is just... He's going to be all over the place, pushing, soaking, gaining objectives. Zagara, obviously, can get Bolt of the Storm as well. Zeratul gets Rewind. That's what we saw last match. There's a couple options. We'll see what Glarum picks up there. But we saw Rewind last match, and it's just going to be such a huge power spike for him. Level 20 is here. It is going to be that Hardened Shield. Caterpillar getting initiated on, but taking a fighter here for Tempo Storm would be disastrous. They're all clumped up at this choke point. This is not what they want to be doing here, Jay Howe.
3 people in that Devouring Maw. KO commits to it. The stuns are coming out. We do see the Ice Block come out from Soldier. The teams are completely split. They got to be careful. Glaurung on this back line trying to do damage to Soldier. Shane, this is all over the place right now.
It is. This is a scrappy team fight if I ever saw one right here. Faye is trying to get herself out. If they can take down Faye and separate her, that'd be a great way to get themselves a little bit of momentum going into this match. Not going to be the case. The Mighty Gust from her Falstad brother is going to secure her getaway right there. That looked disastrous for Tempo Storm.
Take a look at the core, Shane. We have catapults and the remnants of a camp pushing this, forcing Tempo Storm to drop back. Can this be an aggressive point with level 20 for Cognitive? It looks like they're going to play a little bit safe. The next one, they have 2 keeps down. Will they make the commitment here? This is huge right now.
It is, but forcing the hand of Tempo Storm to keep themselves contained inside of the base. Tempo Storm has to be worried about their core pushing in, but at the same time, they have to be out of the map trying to pick up an objective here. They've only had 1 Garden Tear since that first one they had with the second night phase, and they really need to get themselves a Garden Tear here, because if Cognitive are able to get one for themselves, which they have, 18 minutes into the game with 2 keeps down, soon to be 3s, we see Cognitive sweeping down to the bottom lane, more than likely to be able to pick this itself up. The situation just continues to get grimmer and grimmer for Tempo Storm. They're down level 20. They're down a Garden Tear. They're going to be able to have theirs in about 10 seconds here, but this right here could just be the game. They could just make a slow but persistent push on top of the core, utilizing that Garden Tear. As long as they execute this well, they should be able to take this match right here.
Using the Shadow Stalk to disengage just a little bit, waiting on Glaurung to show up with the Terror. We do see the dive coming in. Zix getting zoned out there. Can they take Zix down? That is huge right now, Shane. As Morales goes down, that is the healer. And now we see the full-on assault. Cowthen can they take him down? He does. Goku on this back line. But the assault is on the core right now with this Terror this late in the game. As we do see now Tyrande go down, Shane. This is crazy right now. This is huge for Glaurung.
It is. I think more than likely Cognitive are going to be able to take this with with the Terror being this healthy. Faye can just pretty much just continue to push down the core. It is going to be game number 1 of this best of 3 series going to Cognitive, and right there making a statement going, we are going to be the ones who qualify right here, Tempo Storm. You might be the new guys in town. We're also the new kids on the block as well, but Cognitive, man, they just looked so impressive. That wasn't, I mean, take a look at the takedowns. It was only 4-2 takedowns on an 18-minute match. That shows that these teams have a lot of respect for each other. Neither of them are made any 2 really kind of reckless, aggressive moves. We saw some calculated aggression, but man, that was just an incredibly impressive display right there from Cognitive, J-How.
Shane, not to take anything away from Tempo Storm because they're going to come back. They're one of the best teams. They've been playing extremely well. But I don't know. It might be reaching a little bit. But we saw the early commitment on the bottom tower in the bottom lane. We saw the commitment to the next terror, the Garden Terror. They grabbed that, rotated down, continued to push that. They made a lot of right calls. And I'm not sure if that was the chain effect or just a circumstance and coincidence of events that just kind of played out there. But all of their rotations forced Tempo Storm to continue to defend. They forced them to basically stay back and allowed Cognitive to make the proper rotations basically from the very beginning of the game and on. And they were able to keep a very strong grasp on this game from beginning to end, in my opinion.
Well, I will not be surprised at all if this is brought to a game number 3, ladies and gentlemen. Without that being said, we're going to take a little break here, get game number 2 underway for you. The draft will be up as soon as we have it. I am Shane Gucher. Co-casting with me is always the handsome and benevolent Jay Howe. Check both of us out on Twitter, at Shane Gucher and at Jay Howe Gaming. And we'll be back here in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.